Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. We'll switch over to the sort of work of the Pomeroy Foundation, and Steve, Emma, Anna, and John we're really grateful to have them join us today to share a bit about their work and a bit about what the foundation's been up to in the last couple of years. Really proud to partner with them because when our work intersects in the realm of kind of history infrastructure. We're all about historic buildings, of course, but if you're standing there looking at a building, sometimes it's great to have a little information. And so the Pomeroy Foundation provides some really, really well-researched and supported signage programs, among other things. They do a lot to learn about today, and really convey and interpret history information in a broader way to the public. So that's kind of a great intersection of our work and a great introduction to what you'll learn about today. So I want to turn it over to Steve Bodner.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Nolan. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. As Nolan said, my name is Steve Bodner. I head up marketing and communications for the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to be here and do today's webinar with you. Before we dive in, I want to acknowledge the Adirondack architectural heritage, Christine Bush, Nolan, of course, and commend all of you for your interest in local history. So we're grateful for this opportunity to spend some time with you and to share how our historical marker grant programs can support and enhance your work. All of us at the Pomeroy Foundation and our founder and trustee, Bill Pomeroy, are so enthusiastic about the opportunities that we can create together to recognize Adirondack history. So every Pomeroy marker tells a story. Markers help communities celebrate, preserve, and share their history in visible, lasting ways. So, as we move through today's presentation, I invite you to think about how Pomeroy markers can bring greater attention to the history around the places and spaces where you live and work. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to introduce my colleagues from the Pomeroy marker team, Emma, Anastasia, and John.
Thanks, Steve. Hello, I'm Emma McDowell, and I'm a research historian and engagement associate at the Pomeroy Foundation. I'm also the head liaison for our National Register and Legends and Lore programs, and I'm so happy to be here today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anastasia. I'm also a research historian here at the Pomeroy Foundation, and I'm also the lead for the education program. I just wanted to say thank you to AARCH for having us, and I'm very excited to be here with you all.
I'm John. I'm the archivist and collections manager for the sister organization, the American Pomeroys, as well as the foundation. And I am the reviewer for the New York Patriot Burials program. And I also, as a fun fact, grew up just south of the Adirondack Park in Saucons Falls and spent a lot of time hiking around the park with my dad. So the history of the area is a real big interest of mine.
Thank you, marker team. You'll hear more from my colleagues in just a little bit, but first I'm going to introduce you to the Pomeroy Foundation. So here's a roadmap for today's webinar. First, we'll talk about our mission at the William G. Pomeroy Foundation and an introduction to our founder, Bill Pomeroy. Then I'll take you through a closer look at why historical markers are so important to our work and the benefits and impact they have on communities. After that, we'll cover our signature and partner marker grant programs, along with a particular focus on National Register and student-led applications through the Pomeroy Education Program. And as we wrap up the webinar, we'll share information about marker-related initiatives and talk about how you could stay connected with us and get more resources through our website. So for those of you who are new to us, the William G. Pomeroy Foundation is a private philanthropic organization based in Syracuse, New York, and we are founded by philanthropist and entrepreneur Bill Pomeroy, who is pictured here with a Lafayette Trail historical marker in Skaneateles, New York. Now, the mission brings together Bill's two greatest passions in life, improving outcomes for blood cancer patients and helping communities celebrate their history by providing funding for historical markers. Bill established the foundation while he was battling acute myeloid leukemia, AML, and his vision was to improve the probability of survival for others through life-saving treatments, research, advancing donor matches. And at the same time, Bill also wanted to ensure that communities have the opportunity to celebrate and commemorate their local history And so that belief is really at the heart of our marker grant programs. So people always ask us, well, why historical markers specifically? And for Bill, that enthusiasm for history goes back to his childhood. Bill fondly remembers traveling with his father, who was a salesman, and stopping to read roadside markers together. And those moments visiting markers and historic sites really stayed with Bill and made a lasting impression on him. So later, when Bill found out that in New York State, the state stopped funding its historical marker program in the late 1930s. That left it up to communities to fund markers and do fundraising on their own. So Bill saw an opportunity to fill that gap, and that's when Bill launched our first Pomeroy Marker Grant Program, which has been the springboard for all of our other grant programs and initiatives like the signature programs and National Historic Marker Weekend, which we'll mention later. And so Bill's interest in this is really around how historical markers can benefit communities in significant ways. So, speaking of benefits, historical markers are important for many reasons. They tell stories, they honor legacies, strengthen the fabric of communities. Importantly, they educate the public, enhance pride of place, encourage tourism, and they also highlight untold stories, bringing forward voices that might be overlooked. And, markers, when they're installed, are a great point of pride. And so communities, grant recipients will always host dedication ceremonies. These dedications bring together local officials, partner organizations, volunteers. They get a lot of media coverage. So dedications are a great way to build visibility, spark curiosity and interest, and strengthen community connections. And when it comes to Pomeroy markers specifically, I just want to point out that accuracy is paramount for us. Every Pomeroy marker is vetted by the professional historians on the marker team, and it's really our gold standard. And that's the verification of the primary sources that support the facts on the markers. And in addition, importantly, all of these markers funded by the Pomeroy Foundation are fully funded. And so that means the grant covers the entire cost of the marker, the pole, and the shipping to the grant recipient. So as we get into an overview of our programs, I just wanted to point out that there's really kind of two main categories, what we call our signature programs and our partnership programs. And together, this range of regional and national grant programs provide great opportunities for communities to commemorate a wide variety of history, from early transportation to folklore and foodways and significant national events. And all of this really aligns naturally with the local history around villages, towns, and cities nationwide. And here is a little quick overview of the signature marker programs that we'll cover first. And each of these programs has its own page on our website, wgpfoundation.org. And that's where you're going to find more details about the programs, marker criteria, guidelines, application instructions. So keep that in mind that you can always go back to our website and get more information. But now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Pomeroy Marker team to tell you more about each of these programs.
All right. Thanks, Steve. So to begin, our flagship program is the New York State Historical Marker Program. This is the one that started it all. It commemorates people, places, events, and things from 1683 to 1926 and has served as the model for our National Hometown Heritage Program. Since 2006, we've awarded more than 1,200 New York State historical markers across 62 counties in New York State, many of them at historic homes and buildings, churches, cemeteries, schoolhouses, and other sites that are significant to the community and beyond. Please note that New York State Historic can commemorate buildings and include architects in the text, but we cannot fund markers for architectural styles or features specifically. All right, National Register. So this program provides bronze plaques and markers for properties and districts listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Because designation alone doesn't provide funding for signage, this program helps fill that gap. So public properties and historic districts can commemorate their placement and share this achievement with their community. Please note that signage is not available for private residences or commercial properties. Only public sites or those owned by 501c3 organizations or nonprofit academic institutions are eligible for National Register signage. And applications are accepted year-round and are straightforward, requiring only the official designation and land permission letters. This can be an excellent option for historic structures, sites, and districts. And we have two different plaque styles to choose from. One of them is pictured on the left, and the site you apply for may be eligible for a National Register plaque and historical marker from one of our signature programs. Like pictured here with the Martinsburg Common School. We encourage you to apply for both if eligible. And here are some examples of National Register signs that we've contributed to in the Adirondacks. We have the Lakeview Grange number 970 in Westport, Hale Cemetery in Norwood, the Lewis County Fairgrounds in Lowville, and the Big Moose Community Chapel in Eagle Bay. With over 700 National Register sites in the Adirondack region, there are numerous opportunities to celebrate National Register designations with historical signage. So the next program I want to talk about is Historic Transportation. This program commemorates railroads, bridges, tunnels, canals, boats, and aviation. It focuses on stories prior to 1945, before the automobile and interstate highways reshaped travel. These markers show visitors how movement across the nation has evolved over time. Legends and Lore celebrates folklore and cultural heritage. From folktales to oral traditions, this program captures stories that may not appear in textbooks but are still deeply meaningful to communities. These stories are often tied to real-life events, legendary figures, and customs passed down through generations. These markers invite imagination and storytelling, enriching visitor experience in outdoor spaces. And now I'll hand it over to Anna for the next part.
Thanks, Emma. So I'm going to talk about Hungry for History. Hungry for History celebrates traditional regional food dishes that were created prior to 50 years ago. You might want to think about Syracuse's salt potatoes, the Michigan hot dog in Plattsburgh, pictured here, or Burgoo Festival in Illinois. These food dishes and festivals often have historical stories that can intersect with parks, markets, and community gathering places, and they can be powerful expressions of local identity. So we also offer Hometown Heritage. This is our national program. Hometown Heritage commemorates historically significant people, places, and events that are older than 100 years. This is especially valuable in states that don't have a marker program or for topics that don't fit elsewhere. Since we have our New York State Historic Program, we don't offer Hometown Heritage in New York State, but you could still share this with your friends who are outside of New York. So then in addition to our signature programs, we also offer partner programs. For these, we partner with nonprofit organizations and governments to commemorate historic people, places, and events that align with their historic preservation and educational missions. These partnerships allow us to fund markers across broader networks, such as History Colorado, the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission, or the National Collaborative for Women's History Sites, just to name a few. And now I will hand it over to John.
Thanks, Anna. So Patriot Burials is a program that commemorates the final resting places of Revolutionary War veterans and patriots. Through our partnership with the Sons of the American Revolution, more than 200 markers have been funded so far. Many are located in rural cemeteries and park-like settings, places of reflection that benefit from clear, respectful interpretation. For local communities, this program presents them the opportunity to connect with their local SAR chapter and ultimately the state organization to apply for the program. Here in New York, that's the Empire State Society of the SAR. Our partnerships with New York, Alabama, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, most recently New Hampshire came on board, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia are very active, and applications arrive both from the SAR themselves as well as SAR co-applicant packets from local historical societies and others. In states where there may not be a partnership yet, we welcome those communities to reach out to us or their statewide SAR chapter to work together to bring more states into the program.
Now I'll talk about Trails Across America. So this is a new national partnership with the Rails to Trails Conservancy. And this is the second marker series we're doing with Rails to Trails, the first being the Great American Rail Trail. This program provides fully funded markers along multi-use trails such as greenways, canal paths, and former rail lines converted into recreational trails. Subjects are eligible through 1956, marking the passage of the Interstate Highways Act, a turning point in transportation history. With more than 42,000 miles of trail corridors nationwide, the goal is to fund up to 20 new markers each year, connecting communities through the powerful combination of history and place. When applying for a Pomeroy marker grant, there are three key steps. So first, you'll want to review the program guidelines and criteria closely. Second, you need to confirm eligibility. Grants are open to 501(c)(3) organizations, nonprofit academic institutions, tribal nations, and government entities. You'll need to find one of these groups to partner with if you're an individual. Third, you'll need to begin gathering primary sources and your land permission letter very early. These are essential to a successful application. And please visit our website for complete guidelines and grant round dates and deadlines. Now back to Anna.
So I'm going to talk about our Pomeroy Education Program now. This is another opportunity that we offer. It allows students to conduct primary source research, prepare applications, and students are able to see their work realized as a permanent marker in their community. This program offers flexible resources that are aligned with academic timelines for both high school and higher education students. What really sets this program apart is that the student applications for our signature programs are accepted on a rolling basis, so year-round. Student-led is not limited to just classes either. Students have applied through libraries, scout troops, student governments, clubs, and other extracurricular groups. So one of our resources is to help support instructors. So we provide a free high school curriculum that was developed by a history teacher using the National Council for the Social Studies C3 framework and the New York State Seal of Civic Readiness Initiative. These lessons cover primary source research, source analysis, composing a marker inscription, historical context and narrative, planning the dedication ceremony, and last but definitely not least, applying for the Pomeroy Foundation grant. These projects also provide a great opportunity to involve the community in the classroom with visits from local historians and officials or special collections, museum, and historic preservation experts. So we also have resources for instructors teaching in higher education. To make the process easier, we've provided a starter kit with resources that help integrate the marker research and application into a syllabus. These materials are designed to encourage a higher level of critical analysis about historical narrative building and monument and marker scholarly discourse. These projects are also excellent for networking with public historians and government officials. And some students have even presented their work at conferences. One recent example near the Adirondack region is a marker we funded for the Holcroft House at Clarkson University in Potsdam, New York, which was applied for a student. And now I will pass things back over to Steve.
Thank you, Anastasia. So that was a really great overview of the Pomeroy Foundation's signature and partner marker grant programs and the Pomeroy Education Program. Now I want to turn your attention to one of our big nationwide initiatives called National Historic Marker Weekend. And with markers being such an integral and beneficial part of communities, it's important to take care of them and give them some regular maintenance so that they could last for generations. And that's where Marker Weekend fits in. So National Historic Marker Weekend is an all-volunteer service event that encourages individuals and groups of all sizes to help preserve local history through historical marker cleaning, maintenance, and stewardship. So each year at the end of April, dedicated volunteers in cities, towns, and villages all across the country put local history in the spotlight during Marker Weekend. Thousands of volunteers from over 40 states have participated over the years. So mark your calendars this year because National Historic Marker Weekend will take place on Friday, April 24th through Sunday, April 26th. And we created a National Historic Marker Weekend section on our website, wgpfoundation.org. So you can go there and download the volunteer kit and get details about planning your service project and signing up to volunteer, where you'll get some information and more news and announcements about exciting things happening with Marker Weekend this year. So one of the great resources on the website I also want to point out is our digital marker map. So Grant applicants and the public at large often find inspiration from our online marker map. Every single marker funded by the Pomeroy Foundation, that's over 3,000, has its own webpage on our marker map. And each of those web pages includes location details like GPS, address, the inscription on the marker, additional information about the context of the history, photos, videos, links. So it's a fantastic resource, and you can even search by keywords or program types. On this slide, I wanted to share what one of the web pages look like. You can see that there's a thumbnail of the map that you can go and navigate to see exactly where the location is. So again, it's a wonderful research tool and a great way for communities, especially throughout the Adirondacks and beyond, to showcase and learn about local history in their communities. So, that being said, I want to thank you for your time today in learning about our grant programs and initiatives. Every Pomeroy marker tells a story, honors a legacy, and helps to strengthen the fabric of a community for future generations. So, we invite you to consider our grant programs, participating in Marker Weekend, and really invite you to learn more and connect with us through our website. You have our contact information on this slide, so please reach out.
Again, thank you so much, Steve, Anastasia, Emma, and John. Wow, the Pomeroy offers almost a dizzying array of programs, and I encourage you, all of the folks in the audience, to check out, a lot of this material that we've shared in the chat, and their programs, but also some of the resources that Steve mentioned in our region and beyond. It's just a wonderful collection of material and kind of grist to dig into if you're interested in history. And so the Pomeroy Foundation has just been great at supporting the ethic around history. So thank you all for that. This person says, I am curious about the higher education opportunity and if our local colleges have been reached out to.
I'll pipe up for this one. So I have met with folks at SUNY Potsdam, but in general, we haven't spoken to too many, but we're very open to it, and I would definitely love to talk to more. And so if you have any in mind and you want to either recommend us to them or them to us, I'm happy to reach out to people. Just email us, call us, any of the above, and let us know.
And then the other question is there funding? Is there any funding to help restore markers?
Anastasia, you want to take that one too? You answered that recently. Somebody else had a similar question.
Yeah, sure. So we can fund replacement markers for markers that are a little too far gone. And in order to do that, you still have to go through our application process and apply for the grant funding. But we have replaced quite a few markers. And then if there are any Pomeroy markers that are in need of replacement, we do help with that as well. So you can just, again, reach out to us and let us know if there's a specific one you have in mind.
Great. Next question is, how is the wording of the markers decided? That's a good one.
Great question. So really determined by the preference of the applicant and what they prefer to commemorate. But it also mainly is dependent on the primary sources that they provide, and we can dig up because we want to make sure our signs are historically accurate for the subject and everything. But the way it's arranged depends on the character limit and the applicant's preference. So.
Another question is, if your building is on the National Register, can you automatically apply for a marker?
That would be another question for me again. Thank you. So if your building's on the National Register, you would need to make sure the property is public. We unfortunately don't commemorate buildings that are privately or commercially owned. So that would be a big factor in that. And then if the property is publicly owned, you'll want to submit a National Register designation letter and land permission letter as well.
Not to ask you another question, Emma, but this kind of goes along with that. Can you kind of walk us through, what's a kind of sample path for an individual owner? Say if there's a residential owner, for example, what kind of steps can they take to discuss that with you?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So yeah, they'll definitely want to take a look at our website and see what our criteria is and the eligibility. But yeah, National Register markers are very straightforward. They're on a rolling basis, so they can apply anytime. They'll just they can contact me and I can walk them through the application process. You just have to indicate the historic title of the residence and then the date that it was listed on the National Register. Those are the two points of information that are flexible on our National Register markers. The other text is set. It's just basically saying that this structure has been listed on the National Register of Historic Places, blah blah blah. So yeah, you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to discuss the process. But yeah, it's very straightforward.
I just wanted to add on because I know Emma mentioned the permission letter, and sometimes it's going to be coming from the applying organization that owns the building, and that's pretty easy and straightforward. But if the permission letter is coming from a municipality or some other property owner, you might want to start the process to obtain that earlier rather than later. So just wanted to mention that.
So yeah, no, it can take a while. So thank you.
We have a question from Chris saying the blue and yellow signs look similar to New York State Education Department signs that were, sort of 1932 vintage, which you see all over the state. That has wording that is not likely to be chosen today. Could such a word be could such a sign be replaced with more appropriate wording? That's a good question. So these are what Chris is referring to are these New York State Education Department signs that you'll probably see all over the place. They're a little more beat up than Pomeroy's since they're much more recent and have this great sort of volunteership behind them. But do any of you want to take that question?
So yes, we have had a couple of times where applicants have been able to prove that the wording on the marker from the 1930s is not fully historically accurate. They provide sources that show that uh, it needs to be updated, and so we have been able to fund a couple of markers like that in the past. Um, as I mentioned, you do have to provide sources that show that the text you want to replace it with is historically accurate, but that is possible.
Great, thanks, Anastasia. So I was wondering if any of you could share an example of some Adirondack projects that maybe specifically you worked on, maybe not, but some projects in the North Country. Kind of walk us through them and how they came into being.
Yeah, I haven't seen many so far, but I am a little bit new to the foundation. But I did work on a National Register application in Holland Patton. And there's right around the village square, there's like four different churches from different denominations. So that was a really interesting application from out in the Adirondack area. And I enjoyed that one. Yeah.
One I've worked on, I did mention in the presentation, the Holcroft House up at Clarkson University. That was pretty interesting to get into that. And it was not necessarily, it was one of the relatives of the founder of Clarkson University who had the house built. And so it was very interesting to dig into that. And the student who applied for it did a really great job. And in the slides, I had a photo of their poster that they presented with it, so it was very well done.
I wanted to ask, sort of selfishly, this is probably for all of you, really. What are perhaps the biggest surprises that you've come across in your work, not just in New York, but kind of more broadly, and since you've gone national?
I have a really fun one, and I can't remember if Anna and Emma were on board, but we had an application come through for New York State history probably 6, 7, 8 months ago at this point. And it was for an abolition trail. And essentially the history was a group of abolitionists started to hold a meeting in Utica, very quickly got driven out of town and ended up in Clockville, not too far from here. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of documentation as primary sources about that. And the applicant and I went back and forth on it a little bit, and ultimately, I sort of landed on a couple of different references to an original set of family papers that led to the publication of a book specifically about the meeting at Peterborough. And lo and behold, I got really lucky digging around online. I found the son of the person who had been last known to own the papers, and just happened to reach out to this person and ask him, please tell me you still have this letter from your ancestor that talks about leaving Utica, going to Clockville and then Peterborough. And lo and behold, they did. And within 3 or 4 pages of that document proved both markers that the applicant was looking for. But no archive, museum, historical society in New York had the papers. This gentleman was living out in Michigan or Wisconsin. So if it hadn't been for a little bit of needling and digging, we wouldn't have been able to work through those markers. I did see another question come in, Nolan. If you don't mind, I'm going to take that one really quickly. It came from Marty, who said, I noticed one of the places cited was cemeteries. Is this normally done by towns, or can an individual person pursue the sponsorship? So ultimately, the only entities that can apply for markers are nonprofits or municipalities. However, if an individual has an interest in something, the local historical society, the municipality, can certainly work with that person to submit for the application. Specifically in the instance when I'm working through Patriot Burials applications, sometimes those do come through to our liaisons here in New York with the SAR from all of the above, individuals, municipalities, historical societies. As long as the applicant, the ultimate applicant, is a nonprofit, like the SAR, they can work with a wide array of folks to ensure that the marker can be applied for and then reviewed by one of the members of the team.
Do geographical features that have historical significance qualify for signage? Good question.
I'll just jump in quickly as kind of a high level commentary. I believe there might be a few related to geological formations. I think there might be one on the Great American Rail Trail, and there's also been a few in reference to fossils, but it might be more about the event of a discovery of a particular fossil. But I'll let the marker team, answer that a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say it kind of depends on the historical significance that's attached to the geographic feature. I can think of a couple. I think of we did one for some caverns or caves pretty recently. I'm blanking on the name, but
Knox
yeah,
Caves.
so. I know that we can. It's going to depend on what the historical significance is and if that fits our guidelines.
Yeah. And as Steve said, it's usually tied to an event or like the tourist attraction part of it, or like a park, like the history of like who owned the property or something, not as much like the geological or geographical features themselves.
But again, I just wanted to thank everybody from the Pomeroy Foundation, Steve, Anastasia, Emma, and John. Thank you so much for taking the time with us this afternoon. I hope you get some some new folks coming on. We know, for example, we've had two of the National Register of Historic Places districts that we've done in the last 2 years, I guess we could say. Now Sable Forks and Schuyler Falls have already expressed interest in doing a historic district sign. So you'll probably be hearing from them soon if you haven't already. And hopefully anybody else in the audience that's got some stake in a historical society or a municipality, takes on some of these projects and libraries as well. We'd love to see some students involved too, and of course at AARCH, we're happy to help facilitate that in any way we can, and put you in touch with Steve and the crew here. So thanks again. Really appreciate your work and for you being with us this afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody take care.